Is it better to receive what you wish for, or to trust in what is given? This question stirs the mind and soul. Allow me to share a tale passed down by the ancient sage, Saadi, that might bring some clarity to this question, or at least illuminate a different perspective on our desires. There once lived a pious elder, a man of faith, whose greatest longing was to have a daughter. He believed that a daughter, gentle and kind, would bring a light into his home that nothing else could replace. He prayed deeply to the heavens and vowed that if he were blessed with a daughter, he would give away all his possessions as charity, keeping only the clothes on his back. He wanted nothing more than the happiness of raising a girl who could share his life with grace. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. A son was born instead. True to his vow, even though it wasn't quite what he had hoped for, the elder gave away all his possessions, leaving himself with only his simple robes. The dervishes of the town, those wandering seekers of truth, found themselves with ample feasts because of his generosity, and they praised his sacrifice. Life continued, and the elder raised his son with the same hopes he might have had for a daughter. He nurtured him, taught him to walk the righteous path, and poured into him all the wisdom he had gathered through his own years. But children have their own minds and make their own choices, and the son, he chose a different path. Years later, when Saadi passed through that town, he remembered the pious elder and decided to pay him a visit. He sought out the familiar house, but instead of the warmth of a family home, he found silence. The neighbors spoke of the elder, but not in tones of reverence or respect. They spoke of tragedy. "He is in prison," they told Saadi. Saadi, bewildered, asked how such a man could have ended up behind bars. The answer came like a heavy stone, dropped into a still pond, rippling through Saadi's heart. It wasn't the elder's crime, it was his son's. The young man, consumed by drink and reckless impulses, had gotten into a fight. In his drunken rage, he had killed an innocent person. Fearing the consequences, he had fled, leaving his father to face the wrath of the authorities. The elder, who had once been known for his devotion and sacrifice, now languished in prison, his son's sins now his own burden to bear. Saadi shook his head, a deep sadness settling in his chest. He spoke softly, almost as though speaking to himself. Good heavens, the elder has brought this misfortune upon himself through his own wish. He remembered the elder's desperate prayers for a daughter, and the way he had clung to that wish as if he knew better than fate. And now, the unintended consequences of his wish had turned into his greatest sorrow. Saadi mused, "It is better to have a snake born from the mother's womb than a disobedient son who brings disgrace." He pondered further. "There is no greater torment than a bad child. Do not desire a lamp that burns down your own house." The elder's story, a simple parable, was an echo of the human condition, our desires, our dreams, and the often unseen consequences of insisting on what we believe we must have. It is in our nature to wish for what we think will bring us happiness, to make promises in hopes of controlling the unpredictable flow of life, and yet the elder's suffering was a reminder that sometimes what we long for can be our undoing. Saadi's tale speaks not just to the relationship between parent and child, but to the broader human impulse to want and to shape life according to our own understanding. We think we know what is best, but perhaps wisdom lies in accepting what comes without trying to bend the world to our will. Perhaps the true gift is learning to see the blessings in what we are given, rather than clinging too tightly to what we wish for. The story tells that the dangers of desire are often hidden beneath layers of love and hope. The elder wanted a daughter, but he was given a son. He gave all he had in gratitude, but he still faced sorrow. Was it his wish that led him to this pain, or was it simply fate? Saadi does not answer this directly, for he knows that the answer lies within each of us, waiting to be discovered. The moral, then, is not spelled out in lengthy lessons. It is lived through the elder's experience, a quiet reminder that perhaps true peace comes not from getting what we want, but from embracing what life gives us, trusting that there is a wisdom far greater than our own in play. And so, the question remains, is it better to receive what we wish for or to trust in what is given? Perhaps the answer lies not in either extreme, but in finding grace within the unfolding of our own stories, in trusting that, regardless of what we receive, there is a way to grow wiser, more compassionate, and more at peace,